Dr. Amanda Clark rubbed her tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. It was 3 in the morning, and she had been staring at computer screens for the past 12 hours. The Arecibo Observatory was quiet except for the soft humming of machines and the occasional click of keyboards. Most people thought her job was boring, but Amanda loved listening to the stars. She had been a radio astronomer for 15 years, and every night she searched the sky for signals from space. Most of the time, she found nothing but random noise from distant galaxies, but tonight was different. Tonight, something was calling back. The signal appeared on her screen at exactly 3:17 a.m. At first, Amanda thought it was just another piece of space junk interfering with her equipment. But as she watched the numbers dance across her monitor, her heart began to beat faster. This was not random noise. This was a pattern. The signal was coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri, the closest star to Earth. It was exactly 4:24 light years away, which meant any signal from there would take 4.24 years to reach Earth. But what made Amanda's hands shake was not where the signal came from. It was what the signal contained. Hidden inside the radio waves were mathematical sequences, perfect mathematical sequences, the kind that could only be made by something intelligent. Amanda had spent her entire career hoping to find proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Now, staring at her computer screen, she realized that proof had found her. She grabbed her phone and called Dr. Lisa Park, the best language expert she knew. Lisa had helped decode ancient human languages and had always joked that one day she might need to decode alien ones too. That day had arrived. "Lisa, you need to get here right now," Amanda said, her voice shaking. "Amanda, it's 3 in the morning. This better be important. We got a signal from space. A real signal. From something intelligent." There was silence on the other end of the phone for a long moment. Then Lisa spoke in a very different voice. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. While waiting for Lisa, Amanda called every major observatory on Earth. The people at the radio telescope in Australia confirmed they were seeing the same signal. So did the scientists in Chile, Russia, and Japan. Whatever was sending this message was powerful enough to be heard all over the world. By sunrise, Amanda's quiet observatory had become the most important place on Earth. Military trucks surrounded the building. Soldiers in green uniforms stood guard at every door. Important people in expensive suits arrived in black cars with tinted windows. Commander Jake Morrison from NORAD was the first military officer to arrive. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had spent his career watching the skies for enemy missiles, but he had never prepared for this. "Dr. Clark," he said, shaking Amanda's hand, "I need you to tell me everything you know about this signal." Amanda led him to her computer and showed him the data. The transmission started at exactly 3:17 a.m. our time. But look at this timestamp embedded in the signal itself. She pointed to a series of numbers on the screen. According to this, the signal was sent exactly 4.24 years ago. Commander Morrison stared at the numbers. "That's impossible. How could they know exactly when their signal would reach us?" "That's what scares me," Amanda replied. "They planned this. They wanted their signal to arrive at this exact moment in time." Dr. Lisa Park arrived with her team of language experts. They had been working on ancient Greek tablets the day before. Now they were trying to decode humanity's first message from another world. Lisa spread papers and computers across every available table. Her team worked without stopping, drinking coffee and arguing about mathematical patterns. For 3 days and 3 nights, Lisa barely left her desk. She filled notebook after notebook with numbers, equations, and possible translations. Amanda watched her friend's eyes grow red with exhaustion, but Lisa refused to rest. "I'm close," Lisa kept saying. "I can feel it. The pattern is almost clear." On the 3rd night, Lisa suddenly stood up from her chair. Her face was pale, and Her hands were shaking. She had been staring at the same page of notes for the past hour, but now she looked up at the room, full of military officers and scientists. "I've got it," she whispered. The room went completely silent. Everyone turned to look at Lisa. Amanda felt her heart beating so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Lisa picked up a piece of paper and read the words she had written there. Her voice was quiet but clear in the silent room. "Your species shows promise. Prepare for evaluation. Compliance ensures survival." The silence that followed was the loudest thing Amanda had ever heard. She looked around the room at the faces of generals, scientists, and government officials. Some looked confused, some looked afraid. But General Richard Hayes, the highest-ranking military officer in the room, looked angry. General Hayes was a big man who had fought in 3 wars. He had gray hair, scars on his hands, and eyes that had seen too much violence. He stood up slowly from his chair and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the New Mexico desert. "Evaluation," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "They want to evaluate us like we're animals in a zoo." Dr. Park nodded. "The mathematical structure suggests they see us as a lower form of life, something to be studied and then either kept or discarded." General Hayes turned back to face the room. His face was hard as stone. "Get me President Walsh on the phone." 20 minutes later, President Catherine Walsh appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. She was a smart woman who had led the country through difficult times before, but Amanda could see that this was different. This was bigger than anything any human leader had ever faced. "General Hayes," the president said, "I've read the initial report. Tell me what we're dealing with." General Hayes stood at attention. "Madam President, we have received a message from an alien intelligence. They are not here to make friends. They see us as subjects for some kind of test. If we fail their evaluation, they will likely destroy us." President Walsh was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steady and strong. "How long do we have?" Amanda stepped forward. "Based on the signal's origin point and the timestamp, we believe they are already on their way. They could arrive at any time." President Walsh nodded slowly. "I want every military commander, every scientist, every engineer who might be useful brought into this project immediately. If these aliens want to evaluate humanity, they're about to learn something important about our species." She leaned forward, and her eyes became as hard as steel. "Humans don't just survive threats. We eliminate them. We've spent our entire history fighting wars, solving problems, and refusing to give up when things look impossible. If they think we're going to roll over and let them judge us, they picked the wrong planet." General Hayes smiled for the first time since the signal arrived. "What are your orders, Madam President?" "Prepare for war," President Walsh said. "Not the kind of war we've ever fought before, but war nonetheless. These aliens are about to discover what happens when you threaten a species that conquered its own world through pure stubborn determination." The screen went dark and the room erupted in activity. Military officers grabbed phones and started making calls. Scientists began packing their equipment. Everyone knew that everything had changed. Amanda stood by her computer, looking at the alien signal still streaming across her screen. 3 days ago, she had been a lonely scientist listening to empty space. Now she was at the center of the most important moment in human history. As people rushed around her preparing for humanity's greatest challenge, Amanda made herself a promise. Whatever these aliens had planned for Earth, they were going to be very surprised by what they found. When they arrived, humans had never been good at being quiet, obedient, or easy to control. And they were about to prove it to the entire galaxy. 3 months after the alien signal, everything changed again. Captain Alex Stone was drinking his morning coffee at the International Space Station when the alarms started screaming. Through the small window, he could see something that should not have been there. A massive object hung in space above Earth like a crystal mountain. It was bigger than any building Alex had ever seen, and it seemed to be made of some kind of clear material that caught sunlight and threw it back in strange colors. The alien probe had arrived, and it was nothing like anything humans had imagined. "Houston, this is Stone," Alex said into his radio, trying to keep his voice steady. "I can confirm visual contact with the object. It's approximately 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. It's positioned in high orbit directly above the North American continent." Back on Earth, mission control erupted in controlled chaos. Dr. Amanda Clark stood next to Commander Jake Morrison, both of them staring at the images being sent down from the space station. The probe was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "It's not moving," Amanda observed. "It's just sitting there, watching us." Commander Morrison nodded grimly. "The question is, what's it waiting for?" They got their answer 6 hours later. Every hospital on Earth started reporting the same impossible thing. Their medical scanners were picking up readings from inside the alien probe. Not readings of the probe itself, but readings of the people inside Earth's hospitals. Somehow, the alien device was scanning through space, through Earth's atmosphere, through building walls, and directly into human bodies. Dr. Rachel Bennett was working the night shift at Denver General Hospital when her equipment started going crazy. Every MRI machine, every X-ray device, every piece of medical scanning equipment in the building was showing the same thing. They were all detecting a powerful scanning beam coming from space. "This is impossible," Dr. Bennett told her assistant, Nurse Kelly Wright. "According to these readings, something is scanning every patient in this hospital. Every patient in every hospital in the city. Maybe every hospital in the world." Nurse Wright looked at the monitor displays with wide eyes. "What kind of scan can go through walls, Dr. Bennett?" "The kind that shouldn't exist," Dr. Bennett replied. She picked up the phone and called the CDC. "This is Dr. Bennett at Denver General. You need to know that something is scanning our patients from space. All of them, right now." Similar calls were being made from hospitals in New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo, and every other city on Earth. The alien probe was not just watching humanity. It was studying them. Every human being on the planet was being examined like insects under a microscope. In the underground bunkers beneath NORAD, President Walsh met with her military advisors and the world's best scientists. The room was filled with maps, computers, and worried faces. General Hayes stood at the front of the room, pointing to satellite images of the alien probe. "The scanning has been continuous for 18 hours, General Hayes reported. "Every man, woman, and child on Earth has been examined. We have no idea what information they're collecting, but we have to assume they're learning everything about human biology." Dr. Lisa Park, who had decoded the original signal, looked exhausted. She had been working around the clock, trying to intercept and understand any new communications from the probe. "There's been no new contact from them since they arrived. They're just collecting data." President Walsh stood up and walked to the large screen showing the probe. "How long until we can get weapons up there?" Captain Alex Stone, speaking through a video link from the space station, shook his head. "Madam President, we tried. I fired our emergency defense missiles at the probe 4 hours ago. They bounced off like rubber balls. Whatever that thing is made of, our weapons can't even scratch it." The room fell silent. Earth's most powerful weapons were useless against the alien technology. For the first time in human history, humans faced an enemy they could not immediately fight. But while the politicians and generals were feeling helpless, other humans were getting angry. Very angry. Dr. Rachel Bennett had left her job at the hospital and driven straight to the nearest military base. She demanded to speak with whoever was in charge of fighting the aliens. When they tried to turn her away, she started yelling. "That thing in space scanned my patients," she told Colonel Mike. Turner, the base commander. It looked inside their bodies without permission. It violated every single person in my hospital, in my city, on my planet. I want to know what we're doing to stop it. Colonel Turner was a career military officer who had fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was used to dealing with enemies he could see and shoot. This was different, but Dr. Bennett's anger reminded him of something important. Humans did their best fighting when they were mad. "Dr. Bennett," he said, "what do you know about alien technology?" "Nothing yet," she replied. "But I learn fast. When I'm angry, and right now I'm furious." That conversation started something that would change everything. Within hours, Dr. Bennett was working with a team of the world's smartest engineers and scientists. They were not trying to communicate with the aliens. They were trying to figure out how to kill them. The team worked in a secret facility built inside a mountain in Colorado. They called it Project Defiance, and their mission was simple: take apart the alien signal, understand their technology, and turn it into weapons. Dr. Bennett discovered that she had a talent for understanding alien science. While other scientists got confused by the strange mathematics, she saw patterns. She began to figure out how the alien scanning technology worked. "They're using some kind of quantum field manipulation," she explained to her team. "They can scan through matter because they're not really scanning matter at all. They're scanning the quantum fields that make up matter." Engineer Carlos Rodriguez, who had been brought in from NASA, looked up from his calculations. "If we understand how they're doing it, can we do it too?" Dr. Bennett smiled for the first time since the probe arrived. "Better than that. If we understand their technology, we can build weapons that use their own science against them." While Project Defiance worked in secret, the world above ground was changing. The alien probe had been in orbit for 2 weeks when it sent its first test. It happened without warning on a Tuesday morning. Every electronic device on the east coast of the United States suddenly went dead. Cell phones, computers, televisions, cars, traffic lights, hospital equipment, everything stopped working at exactly 9:47 a.m. Amanda Clark was in her laboratory in New Mexico when the power went out. But this was different from a normal power failure. Her backup generators were not working. Her battery-powered equipment was dead. Even her digital watch had stopped. For exactly 1 hour, half of America was thrown back into the pre-electronic age. People were trapped in elevators. Airplanes had to make emergency landings. Hospitals ran on manual equipment that most doctors had never learned to use. Then, at exactly 10:47 a.m., everything came back on. But when the computers restarted, they all displayed the same message: Phase 1 complete. Cognitive capabilities adequate. Proceeding to Phase 2. The message appeared on every screen in the world. Computer monitors, television sets, digital billboards, smartphone displays. Everything showed the same alien text. The probe was not just studying humanity anymore. It was testing them. President Walsh called an emergency meeting of world leaders. The video conference included the presidents and prime ministers of every major nation on Earth. For the first time in human history, every country was facing the same enemy. "They shut down our technology like it was a light switch," President Walsh told the assembled leaders. "They're treating us like laboratory animals. They're running experiments on our entire species." The British Prime Minister, David Clark, looked grim. "What's Phase 2 going to be?" "We don't know," President Walsh replied. "But we're not going to wait to find out. It's time to show these aliens what happens when someone threatens the human race." That night, President Walsh appeared on every television channel on Earth. Billions of people stopped what they were doing to listen as their planet's leaders spoke as one voice. "My fellow humans," she began, "we are not alone in the universe. But we are also not helpless. For millions of years, our species has survived by fighting back against everything that threatened us. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. We have beaten them all. She paused and looked directly into the camera. These aliens see us as subjects in their experiment. They think they can study us, test us, and decide our fate. They are wrong. We are not subjects. We are survivors. We are fighters. We are humans. Tomorrow, we begin to show them what that means. Around the world, 8 billion humans went to sleep that night with the same thought. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had not just threatened humanity. They had made humanity angry and angry. Humans were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Phase 2 began on a Monday morning when people around the world woke up and could not breathe properly. Lieutenant Colonel Dan Wright was jogging through Central Park in New York when he suddenly felt dizzy. He stopped running and took a deep breath, but something was wrong. The air felt thin, like he was on top of a mountain at the same time. Dr. Susan Miller was checking the atmospheric readings at her weather station in Colorado. The numbers on her instruments made no sense. According to her equipment, the oxygen level in Earth's atmosphere had dropped by 2% overnight. "That's impossible," she said to her assistant, Tom Baker. "You can't just lose 2% of the planet's oxygen in one night." But the readings were correct. All over the world, other scientists were seeing the same thing. The air that every human being needed to survive was slowly disappearing. Dr. Miller called the emergency number she had been given for alien-related problems. Within an hour, she was on a video call with President Walsh and the top scientists. "In the world, the oxygen is not just disappearing," Dr. Miller explained, showing her data on the screen. "It's being changed into something else. Some kind of gas that's heavier than air and settles close to the ground." Dr. Amanda Clark, who had discovered the original alien signal, studied the atmospheric readings. "They're not trying to kill us quickly. They're changing our atmosphere slowly, making it more suitable for them and less suitable for us." General Hayes slammed his fist on the table. "They're terraforming our planet while we're still living on it." President Walsh turned to Dr. Rachel Bennett, who had been working day and night in the Project Defiance laboratory. "Rachel, please, tell me you have some good news." Dr. Bennett looked tired but determined. Her team had been working for weeks to understand the alien technology. "We've made a breakthrough. We figured out how their scanning technology works, and we've built something that can fight back." She held up a device that looked like a metal box with antennas sticking out of it. "This is an electromagnetic pulse generator, but it's not like our old EMP weapons. This one uses the same quantum field technology as the aliens. It can disrupt their nanobots." "Nanobots?" Commander Jake Morrison asked. "Tiny machines," Dr. Bennett explained. "The probe is releasing billions of them into our atmosphere. They're too small to see, but they're changing the air we breathe. Our new EMP weapon can destroy them." Colonel Mike Turner, who had been coordinating the military response, stood up. "How many of these weapons do we have?" 50 so far, Dr. Bennett replied. "But we're building more as fast as we can. Every major city should have one by the end of the week." While the EMP weapons were being distributed, another team was working on an even bigger project. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez was standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Looking down at the deepest place on Earth, the Mariana Trench was 7 miles below the surface, and at the bottom, humans were building something that had never been built before. "Are you sure this will work?" asked Dr. Katie Brooks, the naval officer in charge of the Ocean Project. Carlos looked at the construction plans one more time. "The math says it should work. We're building a gravitational wave generator using the principles we learned from the alien probe. If we can create a strong enough gravitational pulse, it should be able to disrupt the probe shields. And if it doesn't work," Carlos shrugged, "then we're all dead anyway." The gravitational wave generator was the most ambitious engineering project in human history. It required technology that humans had only dreamed about 6 months ago. But humans were fast learners, especially when their lives depended on it. Above ground, the first test of the EMP weapons was about to begin. Dr. Bennett stood in Times Square in New York, surrounded by police officers and soldiers. The air was getting thinner every hour, and people were starting to wear oxygen masks when they went outside. "Are you ready?" asked Captain Bill Foster, who was commanding the New York operation. Dr. Bennett nodded and pressed a button on her device. The EMP pulse was invisible, but its effects were immediate. The air around them seemed to shimmer for a moment, and then the oxygen readings on their instruments began to improve. "It's working," Dr. Bennett said with a smile. "The nanobots in this area are dead." Similar operations were happening in 50 cities around the world. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, Sydney, everywhere humans lived. They were fighting back against the alien machines that were stealing their air. But the aliens were not going to give up easily. The probe in orbit began to pulse with angry red light. It started releasing more nanobots, trying to overwhelm the human defenses. Dr. Susan Miller, monitoring the atmosphere from her station in Colorado, watched as the readings got worse. "They're releasing 10 times as many nanobots as before. Our EMP weapons can't keep up." That was when Carlos Rodriguez, 7 miles under the Pacific Ocean, made the most important decision in human history. The gravitational wave generator was not completely finished, but it was ready enough to try. "All teams, this is Rodriguez." He spoke into his radio from the deep ocean floor. "We're going to fire the gravitational weapon. If this works, the probe shields will be down and we can attack it with conventional weapons. If it doesn't work, we're all going to die from lack of oxygen anyway." He looked around at his team of engineers and scientists. They were all volunteers who had come to the bottom of the ocean to build humanity's last hope. Any objections? Nobody spoke. They all knew this was their only chance. Carlos walked to the main control panel and placed his hand on the activation switch. "Gravitational wave generator charging. All personnel, prepare for pulse in 60 seconds. Around the world, every human military force prepared for the attack. Fighter jets took off from air bases, warships moved into position. Soldiers loaded their weapons. If the gravitational pulse worked, they would have only a few minutes to attack the probe before its shields came back online. 30 seconds, Carlos announced. Captain Alex Stone, still on the International Space Station, had the best view of the alien probe. "I can see energy building up around the probe. It knows something is happening." 10 seconds, Carlos said. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He pressed the switch. 7 miles below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the gravitational wave generator created a pulse of energy that bent space and time itself. The wave traveled at the speed of light, reaching the alien probe in orbit in less than a second. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The probe's energy shields, which had protected it for months, flickered and died. For the first time since it arrived, the alien device was vulnerable. "Shields are down," Captain Stone reported from the space station. "I repeat, the probe shields are down." All around the world, human forces attacked at once. Fighter jets fired missiles. Warships launched rockets. Ground-based lasers targeted the probe from every continent. Commander Katie Brooks was leading a squadron of F-22 fighter jets when she got the order to attack. "All units, this is Brooks. Target is vulnerable. All weapons free." The combined attack lasted 80 minutes. When it was over, the alien probe was drifting powerless in orbit. Its crystal structure was cracked and broken. Strange lights were leaking from the damage like alien blood. Dr. Bennett watched the attack from her command center in New York. As the probe's systems failed, the nanobots in Earth's atmosphere began to die. The oxygen levels started to return. To normal, we did it, she said quietly. Then louder, we actually did it. Around the world, humans celebrated. They had faced their first test as a spacefaring species, and they had won. The aliens had tried to terraform Earth and enslave humanity. Instead, they had learned what happened when someone threatened the human race, but the celebration was short-lived. As teams of scientists began to study the disabled probe, they discovered something that changed everything. Dr. Eric Barnes, leading the examination of the alien technology, found data files that revealed the terrible truth. The probe was not alone. It was a scout for a much larger force. Somewhere in space, an entire alien fleet was waiting to hear from their advance. Scout. When they realized their probe had been destroyed, they would come to Earth in force. President Walsh received the news while she was still celebrating humanity's victory. How long do we have? She asked Dr. Barnes. Based on the data we found. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. They have faster ships than this probe, and they're not going to underestimate us again. President Walsh looked around the room at the scientists and military officers who had just saved their planet. Then we have 6 months to prepare for the real war. The first battle was over, but the war for Earth's survival was just beginning. Dr. Eric Barnes had never seen anything like the inside of the alien probe. After the human attack had disabled it, teams of scientists had been working around the clock to cut through its crystal walls and explore its secrets. What they found inside changed everything humans thought they knew about their enemy. The probe was like a vast library filled with information about thousands of different worlds. Dr. Barnes led a team of Zed archaeologists through corridors that seemed to be made of living crystal. The walls glowed with soft light, and strange symbols covered every surface. "This is incredible," said Dr. Helen Garcia, who specialized in ancient languages. "These symbols tell the story of entire civilizations. Look at this section. It's describing a planet with blue oceans and green continents. Just like Earth." Dr. Barnes studied the alien writing with growing horror. "Helen, I don't think this is describing Earth. I think it's describing another planet that looked like Earth, before the aliens destroyed it." As the teams explored deeper into the probe, they found room after room filled with data about different species. The aliens called themselves the HFY, and they had been traveling through space for thousands of years. But they were not explorers or traders. They were exterminators. The probe's memory banks contained detailed records of over 300 planets. Each planet had been home to an intelligent species. Some had been more advanced than humans. Others had been less advanced. But they all had one thing in common. They were all dead now. Dr. Barnes called an emergency meeting with President Walsh and the world's military leaders. He stood in front of a large screen showing the alien data, his face pale and serious. "The HFY are not warriors," he explained. "They're more like pest control workers. They find planets with intelligent life, study the inhabitants, and then decide whether to keep them as slaves or wipe them out completely." General Hayes leaned forward in his chair. "How many planets have they destroyed?" "All of them," Dr. Barnes replied. "Every single species they've encountered has either been enslaved or exterminated." Earth was supposed to be number 301. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Humanity had come very close to joining that list of dead civilizations. Admiral Lavra Kim, who commanded the Pacific Fleet, was the first to speak. "You said they decide whether to enslave or exterminate. What determines which choice they make?" Dr. Barnes clicked to another screen showing alien charts and graphs. "It depends on how useful the species is to them. If a species has technology or resources they want, they keep them alive as workers. If not, they just kill everyone and take the planet." "And what was their decision about humans?" President Walsh asked. Dr. Barnes looked directly at her. "According To their files, we failed the usefulness test. They were planning to kill every human on Earth and turn our planet into a mining operation. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of General Hayes's chair scraping against the floor as he stood up. "Well," he said, his voice cold as ice, "they made a big mistake. But the most important discovery was still to come." Dr. Susan Miller, who had been working on understanding the probe's navigation systems, made a breakthrough that changed everything. "I found their home base," she announced during the next meeting. "It's not a planet. It's a massive space station orbiting a dying star about 50 light-years from here. According to these files, that's where their invasion fleet is waiting." Captain Bill Foster, who had been promoted to admiral after the successful defense of Earth, studied the navigation data. "How big is their fleet?" Dr. Miller looked at her notes. 57 ships. Each one is bigger than their probe. The space station itself houses over 50,000 Vex high. 50,000, Admiral Kim repeated. "That's their entire civilization?" "As far as we can tell, yes, they're nomads. They don't have a home planet anymore. They live on that station and use it as a base for their conquest operations." President Walsh stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see construction crews working on humanity's first real spaceship. The Vengeance was being built using technology taken from the alien probe, and it was almost ready to fly. "How long before their fleet arrives here?" she asked. "Based on their communication logs, they expect to hear from the probe every 6 months. It's been 4 months since we destroyed it. When they don't get the next scheduled report, they'll know something went wrong. They'll come to investigate." President Walsh turned back to face the room. "Then we go to them first." The idea was simple but dangerous. Instead of waiting for the Vex High fleet to come to Earth, humanity would take the fight to them. The Vengeance. And a small fleet of human ships would travel to the alien base and destroy it before they could launch their invasion. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez had been working on the Vengeance for months. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built in space, but it was tiny compared to the alien vessels they would be fighting. However, it had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. It was built by humans. The aliens designed their ships for long-term conquest operations, Tony explained to the ship's crew. "Our ship is designed for one mission: to fly fast, hit hard, and win." Captain Katie Brooks had been chosen to command the Vengeance's fighter squadron. She was a Navy pilot who had flown combat missions in 3 different wars, but she had never flown in space before. None of them had. "We're making this up as we go," she told her pilots during their final training session. "But that's what humans do best. We adapt, we improvise. We figure out how to win even when we don't know what we're doing." The crew of the Vengeance represented the best of humanity. 2,000 men and women from every country on Earth had volunteered for a mission they might not survive. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, doctors, and pilots, all united by one purpose. Dr. Rachel Bennett, who had developed the EMP weapons that saved Earth, was now the ship's chief science officer. "We've learned more about alien technology in 6 months than they probably expected us to learn in 100 years, she told the crew. "We're going to use their own science against them." The launch of the Vengeance was broadcast to every television on Earth. Billions of people watched as humanity's first interstellar warship left orbit and disappeared into the darkness between the stars. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge as the ship entered faster-than-light travel. Through the windows, he could see stars streaking past like bullets. "How long until we reach the target?" he asked. Tony Martinez checked his instruments. 3 weeks if the alien technology works the way we think it does. And if it doesn't, Tony shrugged. Then we'll be lost in space forever. But the technology worked perfectly. 3 weeks later, the Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace near a dying red star. In orbit around the star was the most terrifying sight any human had ever seen. The HFY space station was enormous. It looked like a metal city floating in space, with ships docked around it like cars in a parking lot. The station was so big that it had its own gravity, and lights twinkled across its surface like a nighttime view of Earth. "My God," whispered Dr. Garcia, who was monitoring the sensor readings. "It's beautiful and horrible at the same time." Admiral Foster studied the tactical displays. The alien fleet was exactly where the probe's data had said it would be. 57 ships of various sizes, all armed and ready for war. But they were not expecting visitors. "They don't know we're here yet," reported Lieutenant Commander Dan Wright from the sensor station. "Their scanners are pointed toward their regular patrol routes. They're not looking for ships coming from Earth's direction." Admiral Foster smiled grimly. The aliens had spent thousands of years hunting other species. They were used to being the predators, but they had never been the prey before. "All hands, this is the Admiral," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We found the aliens who tried to exterminate our species. We found the monsters who destroyed 300 other civilizations. Today, we're going to show them what happens when they threaten humanity." He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. These were ordinary humans who had become extraordinary in the face of an impossible challenge. Today, the hunters become the hunted. The HFY space station was a nightmare made of metal and crystal. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as his sensors revealed the true size of the alien fortress. It was home to 50,000 creatures who had spent their lives destroying other worlds. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Dan Wright, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the station. They have weapons that could destroy entire planets." Admiral Foster nodded. He had expected this. The HFY had conquered hundreds of worlds. They would not be easy to defeat. But humans had one advantage the aliens did not understand. Humans got stronger when they were angry. Dr. Helen Garcia was monitoring alien communications from her position at the science station. "Admiral, I'm picking up transmissions from the station. They're trying to contact their probe. They don't know it's been destroyed yet." "How long before they figure it out?" Admiral Foster asked. "Maybe an hour. Once they realize their probe isn't responding, they'll start investigating." Admiral Foster looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had volunteered to travel 50 light years from home to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. They were scared, but they were ready. "Open a communication channel to the alien station," he ordered. Dr. Garcia looked surprised. "Sir, are you sure? Once we contact them, they'll know we're here." "Good," Admiral Foster replied. "I want them to know we're here." The communication channel opened with a burst of static. Then a voice spoke in the alien language that Dr. Lisa Park had taught them to understand. The voice was cold and emotionless, like a machine. "Unknown vessel," the alien voice said. "You are in restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." Admiral Foster picked up the communication device. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried the anger of 8 billion humans behind it. "This is Admiral Foster of the Earth Defense Force. You sent a probe to our world. You tried to change our atmosphere. You attempted to exterminate our species." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We've come to deliver our response." There was silence from the alien station for several seconds. Then the voice returned, but now it sounded confused and worried. "Impossible. Your species lacks interstellar capability. Our calculations showed you were centuries from achieving space travel." Admiral Foster smiled grimly. "You made one mistake. You threatened our home. Humans don't just survive impossible situations. We use them as motivation to do things that shouldn't be possible." The alien station's weapons began powering up. Energy readings spiked across the Vengeance's sensors. The Vex High were preparing to destroy the human ship before it could cause any trouble. But Admiral Foster was ready for this. All fighter squadrons launch immediately. Target their weapon systems. Captain Katie Brooks led the first wave of human fighters away from the Vengeance. She had never flown in space before 6 months ago, but she had learned quickly. Her squadron of 12 fighters accelerated toward the massive alien station. "Remember," she told her pilots over the radio, "we're not trying to destroy the whole station. We're trying to disable their weapons so the Vengeance can get close enough for the real attack." The human fighters were tiny compared to the alien weapons, but they were fast and unpredictable. Captain Brooks led her squadron in a weaving pattern. That confused the alien targeting systems. The Vex High were used to fighting large, slow ships. They had never faced small, agile fighters before. Meanwhile, the Vengeance was approaching the alien fleet. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez watched his instruments as the ship's new weapons charged up. "Gravitational pulse cannon ready, Admiral. EMP torpedoes loaded and ready to fire." The first alien ship to attack the Vengeance was 3 times larger than the human vessel. Its weapons could have destroyed a city, but when it fired, the beams passed harmlessly around the Vengeance. Dr. Rachel Bennett had installed shield generators based on alien technology, but improved with human engineering. "Their weapons can't penetrate our shields," Dr. Bennett reported. "But ours can penetrate theirs." Admiral Foster gave the order. "Fire all weapons." The Vengeance unleashed everything it had. Gravitational pulse cannons bent space around the alien ships, crushing their hulls like tin cans. EMP torpedoes shut down their electrical systems. Plasma beams, built using technology stolen from the probe, cut through alien armor like it was paper. The first alien ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the space around the dying star. Then the second ship was destroyed. Then the third. Dr. Garcia, monitoring alien communications, could hear panic in the voices from the space station. "They're not used to losing," she reported. "They're calling for reinforcements, but they don't seem to understand how we're winning." The battle was unlike anything the Vex High had ever experienced. For thousands of years, they had been the predators, hunting down helpless civilizations. But humans fought differently. Every time the aliens destroyed one human fighter, 2 more appeared. Every time they adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their strategy. Captain Brooks had lost half her squadron, but she kept fighting. "They're learning our attack patterns," she radioed to the Vengeance. "We need to keep changing our approach." "Copy that," Admiral Foster replied. "All squadrons switch to pattern Delta, keep them guessing." The human fighters began attacking in completely random patterns. There was no formation, no predictable strategy. Each pilot made their own decisions about when and where to attack. The alien targeting computers could not handle the chaos. While the fighters kept the alien fleet busy, the Vengeance moved closer to the space station. Admiral Foster could see the station's surface through the bridge windows now. It was covered with weapon emplacements and docking bays. 50,000 aliens lived inside that metal fortress. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Wright, "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in the station's core. They're charging some kind of super weapon." Admiral Foster looked at the tactical display. The alien super weapon could probably destroy the Vengeance with one shot, but it would take several minutes to charge up completely. "Tony," he called to the chief engineer, "how long until our main weapon is ready?" 30 seconds, sir." "How long until their weapon fires?" 2 minutes. Admiral Foster made a decision that would determine the fate of both species. "All fighters, pull back immediately. We're going to ram the station." The bridge crew looked at him in shock. Dr. Garcia spoke for everyone when she said, "Sir, that's suicide." "No," Admiral Foster replied, "that's human." The Vengeance accelerated directly toward the alien space station. The ship's engines, built with alien technology but powered by human determination, pushed the vessel faster than it had ever gone before. Tony Martinez watched his instruments as the ship approached maximum speed. Hull stress is at 90%. We're pushing the ship beyond its design limits. Will it hold together? Admiral Foster asked. I don't know. But if it doesn't, we'll go out fighting. At the last second, just before the Vengeance would have crashed into the station, Admiral Foster gave the final order. Fire main weapon, full power. The ship's gravitational pulse cannon fired at point-blank range. The massive energy beam punched through the station's shields and tore into its core. The alien superweapon, still charging up for its own attack, exploded. The explosion started small, but it grew quickly. The station's power systems overloaded. Its weapon systems exploded. Its structural supports collapsed. In less than 5 minutes, the fortress that had been home to 50,000 aliens was nothing but burning debris. The remaining alien ships tried to escape, but the human fighters were waiting for them. One by one, every Vex-High vessel was hunted down and destroyed. The species that had exterminated 300 civilizations was eliminated in a single battle. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of the damaged but victorious Vengeance, looking out at the wreckage of the alien fleet. Around him, his crew was cheering and crying and hugging each other. They had done the impossible. Dr. Bennett approached him with a tablet showing sensor readings. Admiral, we've confirmed it. No alien ships escaped. The Vex-High are extinct. Admiral Foster nodded slowly. It was over. The threat to Earth was eliminated. But he felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction. Humans had not wanted this war, but they had finished it. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we're coming home. The message that reached Earth 3 weeks later was broadcast on every television and radio station in the world. Admiral Foster's face appeared on screens in every language, speaking to every human being on the planet. My fellow humans, he said, the alien threat has been eliminated. The species that tried to exterminate us no longer exists. We have learned something important about ourselves in this war. We are not just survivors, we are protectors. We will defend our home and our species against any threat. He paused and looked directly into the camera. But we have also learned something that the rest of the galaxy needs to understand. We came in peace until someone threatened our home. We tried diplomacy until someone tried to kill us. We are not conquerors, but we are the species that refuses to be conquered. Let this message go out to every star, every planet, every civilization that might be listening. We are humanity. We are Earth. We will not kneel. We will not surrender. And we will not forget what happens to those who threaten our world.